Thank you very much, Jack. So my name is Colette Maloney. I'm from the European Commission. I'm down, I think, for 2 presentations, but I'm going to condense them into one. Nobody wants to listen to an hour, or for an hour, to a bureaucrat, so I'll try and keep it reasonably brief. Also, I'd just like to say thank you very much for the information, for the invitation here today. It's a pleasure for me to give the Commission's view. So, starting with the iMobility Forum, the iMobility Forum has had a long history, and it's had a rich history at that. As digitisation has increasingly penetrated road transport, with promises of vehicle safety, later on as a means also of improving sustainability, the Forum has had to adapt and it's had to change its terms of reference on various occasions. And this has always done and done so successfully. And Herman will be touching on the successes of the Forum in his presentation, which follows mine. Talking a little bit about digitisation. In the early days, the impact of digitisation was more at the component level as opposed to being at a systemic level. And we had developments like ADAS and ABS, for example. And then came ITS, to use yet another acronym, which they aim to embrace and to make use of information and communications technologies in particular, to offer advanced services based on exchanging information between vehicles and road infrastructure and between vehicles themselves. In parallel, there has been a trend towards ever-increasing levels of automation. And this basically echoes a trend which is happening in many industries, not just the automotive industry and not just mobility either. And to a large extent, again, just as it has in many industries, this trend has had its own momentum. Look at Google cars, for example. Look, for example, also at the DARPA challenge, which has taken place since the early 2000s. Automation itself promises all sorts of benefits. Just to run through them, increasing degrees of automation can improve safety, can improve efficiency of road usage, can relieve the driver to attend to other activities. It can offer services to drivers and to passengers alike, and create new revenue streams for various stakeholders. Those are the promises, at least. But the devil is always in the detail. Just how these promises are realised and to whom the true benefits will accrue will depend on how automation is actually implemented and how industries themselves and public authorities to work together. As always, digitisation can hugely impact business models. First mover advantages can favour one or just a few parties, and whole industry sectors can be turned on their heads. And the question then for automation is whether ICT will serve the vehicle or whether the vehicle will be yet another ICT platform. And the jury is still out on that. There are opinions served in equal measures, depending on what you read and to whom you listen. A secondary, but also important question is how this industry-driven trend will match with ITS and how it will build on investments as opposed to taking off in a different direction altogether. One thing that is clear in all of this is that we in Europe need to get our act together, not just to prepare for automated driving, but to ensure that our industry will be playing a leading role here. if our OEMs become dependent on just one or two IT companies, they'll no longer be calling the shots in this business. So it's important that the automotive companies engage far more intensively than so far with the digital sector on the big questions surrounding automated driving. To run through some of these questions, they include things like the role or not, I put in brackets, of connectivity. They include things like network coverage and whether or not spectrum will be needed. It also includes data issues, what sort of data, how data is made accessible, and to whom, and who is the data controller. And of course, there are questions around cybersecurity and how that will be implemented and maintained. And these are complex questions. There are complex questions too around liability, but ultimately all of these issues are interlinked. And it is to address such questions and agree between companies, between industries and across member states that Commissioner Oettinger has called upon associations from both the digital and the automotive sectors to come together and to try progress jointly. A first instance of this, the associations and key representatives of those associations, both digital and automotive, took place in Frankfurt during the IAA last month. And at that meeting, there was an agreement made between the sectors and the associations that they would in fact collaborate. The Commissioner has asked also for a follow-up meeting which would take place then in the margins of the Mobile World Congress, which takes place in Barcelona in February next year. And he has made it pretty clear to us that the meeting in Barcelona should be different to the meeting in Frankfurt, in that he'd hope to see real progress in the form of agreements or breakthroughs on some of the issues that today remain unresolved. What he is pushing for ultimately, I repeat, I know, but is EU leadership in this game. Moving again to the iMobility Forum. So I've been chairing steering group meetings for almost 2 years at this stage. And one of the things I've been trying to make clear in the last year, in particular since the new Commission, is that we are in a new working environment. The new Commission, which took place almost 1 year ago in November last year, has new ways of working and it has set itself new ambitions. Digital is key, and the DSM, the Digital Single Market, is a top priority, with both the Vice President and a Commissioner taking care of digital responsibilities. And for our Commissioner Oettinger, who is Commissioner for Digital Economy and Digital Society, when it comes to mobility and the role of digitization in mobility, automation, connected and automated driving, as he puts it, takes centre stage. So for the iMobility Forum, I think it's important that this is reflected in the agenda and in the stakeholder constituency. And this message for me is no new message, as I've said. I've been conveying this for quite some time. Now, we do have this round table process which is going on, as I mentioned, and led by Commissioner Oettinger, where he has engaged stakeholders at the highest levels. But the game does not stop here. That process has set ambitions, it has a fixed timetable, and he envisages that the last meeting should take place after Barcelona sometime in June, July next year. So, as I said, the show does not stop there. There is plenty of scope to move with, around and beyond this exercise, and we do need to keep moving forward in Europe and keep the momentum that we've had all along. But as I mentioned, there is a need to shift in focus and to tweak the stakeholder constituency. That shift and the momentum should come from you, as it has done in the past, and the Commission is willing to remain fully engaged with you now and in the future. And that's the message that I would just like to leave you with this morning. Thank you for your attention.